Hello, Upper Fifth. For those of you fortunate enough not to know me, I'm Mr. Berard. I teach computer science, although not to any GCSE classes this year. And I'm loosely attached to your pastoral teams of form tutors and your head of year as a sort of freelancer, assistant slash mascot. And Miss Korea has asked me to do a little bit on digital safety, or indeed digital well-being. And she claims that I have this like superb rapport with you, and I can get maybe through to you because I'm more of an internet person. But I guess my internet is definitely not what yours is, so I expect it's going to look a lot like this. But instead of digital safety, I'd like to extend it a little bit to digital well-being, because to me, there's three parts to digital well-being. There's the staying safe online. This is the thing that we focus on a lot at school. So I'm probably gonna speed run through those slides, but also because I want to get to staying sane online, which is really about what it does to our mental health, and then staying sage online, which is about understanding how it fits within a system, the attention economy, the biological and psychological mechanisms that make us addicted to technology. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's just get through the entry level, ground level basic stuff. First up, because you're a minor, your account should be private, at least until you're 18. But even if you're not going to do that, then be mindful of the difference between private content and public content, right? And maybe curl your old post, right? I expect that at your age, if you think back as to stuff you said or did 1 or 2 years ago, you'll probably cringe. It's probably bear cringe AF. Or is that working? Is this what we expected? Yeah, so just curl your post, don't put everything in public. If you can, try and kind of keep it on lockdown. That's just a good policy. Paranoia when it comes to the internet is actually a very good policy. Next up, the grandmother rule. Do not post anything do not put anything out in the world under your name that your grandmother wouldn't want to see, that you wouldn't want your own grandmother to see, or indeed a future employer. But again, we focus a lot on that and we neglect maybe some of the rest. So whizzing past. Yes, do not be mean, right? To you, it is banter. To everyone else, it's cyberbullying, right? In writing, there's no tone, there's no context, there's no body language and facial expression. Things will always get misinterpreted for the worst. Situations will escalate gratuitously when they can completely be avoided. Do not write something that you wouldn't tell someone to their face. That's a good policy. And if you can't think of anything nice, do not say anything at all. Hackerman, if you fancy yourself a bit of a hacker man, remember that cybercrime is real crime. You can go to prison, which that's fine, but crucially, you can be banned from the internet. Imagine living the rest of your life without access to the internet. Yes, that is the scary part. Now, interestingly, if you commit a crime whilst a minor, the state will recognize that there's such things as youthful indiscretions and that teenagers are going to teenage, right? And they will either seal your record or erase your it gets wiped when you're 18. It's things like that. But social media companies do not do that, right? To an observer in your feed, something that you posted when you were 16 or 13 or 14 looks the same as something that you posted when you're university when you're 22. So again, maybe curl your old content. Yeah, finally done with that. We focus a lot at school about the safety part, the thing that I just talked about, because this is the thing where when it fails, when a pupil makes a bad choice, it's very, very visible. It's essentially reputation management. It's a PR problem or it's cyberbullying, it's visible. But there are effects that technology has on our mental health, that social media has on our mental health, that are equally problematic in my view, but because they're less visible, we don't maybe put enough emphasis on this. So let's move on to staying sane online. Let's have a bit of e-sanity. Okay, obviously do not compare yourself to other people as a rule. Do not compare yourself to other people on social media even more, because they're posting their best, whereas so you're comparing their best to your everything, your average, your whole self. It's self-evident, but it bears repeating. I'd like to spend a bit more time on the second one. Okay. There's a concept in psychology called the circle of concern. This is the set of all of the things that you concern yourself with, not necessarily So it includes your worries, obviously, but it's broader concern that they're not necessarily negative, but you're keeping an eye on it or a bit of attention on it. So that contains things like the news, the climate, the war, the cost of living crisis. That's things like social media content and influencers and celebrity news and celebrity gossip. There's stuff about, I suppose, the whole popularity hierarchy and gossip within your year and within your form and at school. There's, let's not forget, maybe the exams and your academic success. All of this is in your circle of concern. And you also have a smaller circle called the circle of control. This is the set of all of the things over which you have agency. Agency, super important word. I will come back to it in the third part if I get time to do it. This is all of the things you can do. So for your exam, the circle of concern and control overlap. For the war in Ukraine, they don't as much. And generally, if your circle of concern is much larger than your circle of control, it causes stress because you have a bunch of worries of things you concern yourself with over which you have no control. So the key is to reduce your circle of concern and extend your circle of control. How do you do that? By chilling, like cooling off your news consumption. And I mean that for all of us, right? Like regardless of age. Doom scrolling, that's not good. That's why we call it doom scrolling. Maybe you don't need to keep up with the latest celebrity gossip, right? Extend your circle of control, volunteer in your community, be more assiduous and studious in your studies, but I'm sure I do not need to tell you that. Don't neglect your co-curricular as well, just because it's an exam year. We're trying to make a whole person here at St. Benedict's. So yeah, larger circle of control, smaller circle of concern makes for a happier individual. Now, staying sage online. So beyond the mental health, I'd like to, I'll give some practical, this is where I give the practical tips at the end, but also I'll take the broader view of why is this happening, what are the systemic and psychological mechanisms that underpin that, and why knowing this can help us make more mindful and more wholesome and more skillful choices. So without further ado, next slide, please. Okay, the attention economy. I always go to the attention economy. I love this concept. It's just as simple as that, right? Like now our attention is worth money. So when you scroll Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever, what you're doing is that you are giving your attention. Ostensibly, most of it is on the content itself, but the money is generated by your attention going to the advertising. That's remember, the attention economy spreads larger than social media because mobile games are a particular victim of this, because they're always full of, if you want to do anything meaningful in those games, you need to watch the 30-second ad for another mobile game, or maybe for a platform that allows you to play mobile game and to redeem those by watching more ads into actual money. And that's evidently targeted at teenagers because so let's talk about agency, right? I mentioned this a little bit earlier about the circle of control. Agency, the ability to act, the ability to make your own choices. The reason behind teenage rebellion is because you want agency. So when we tell you to do something, you don't do it, you make the choice not to do it because that's agency, that's making a choice. And that's great. You want agency because as minors, you're deprived of, you have very little economic agency, you have very little political agency. So it's very, very frustrating. And I completely understand that. But bear in mind, one place where you have agency is when you put your attention. And these days is actually much more valuable than it used to be. So in a way, teenagers are much more powerful than they used to be. Interesting. Um, so, um, like bear in mind, and even when you're producing content on social media, what you're doing is you're producing bait so that your friends' attention will be given to the content, of course, but also to the advertisers. At the end of the day, you're not interacting with your friends on social media. Everyone is interacting with the platform, and the platform decides to show this or that, and then it takes 30 seconds of your time to show you a little bit of advert about something, and this is how they make the money. Right. So at the in the final analysis, it's a Skinner box, right? There's a reward, like B.F. Skinner, favor of behaviorism. He had this experiment where he got a rat to press a lever because the rat would get a reward when he pressed the lever. Because when you get a reward, you get a squirt of dopamine, and all compulsive behavior, addiction, but also motivation is underpinned by dopamine. This is the neurotransmitter that gives us a good feeling when we do something that normally should be good for our body. And it does happen that novelty, like the little short videos, the little bit of content, a little snarky comment, that gives us getting a like, sending a like a little bit less, but getting a like, that gives us a little bit of dopamine. So we come back for more. So let's go back to the We can't go back to Skinner rat because I'm recording the slides, of course. And so the rat keeps on pressing the button because you get the reward. So bear that in mind as you're sliding through and then getting the reward of dopamine so that you can be shown more advertising, because this is all that matters to these people. Tech companies do not have your best interest at heart. I know, I work for some of them for 15 years. Now, practically, what can we do about it? To the left, it's the iPhone. You have screen time. It's in settings. You can look at how much time you spend on various apps. You can set some limits. Maybe your parents have. Maybe your parents should. On the right, it's Android. Again, it's in settings. It's called Digital Wellbeing. Same deal. There's a wind down mode. You can put it in 9 mode where the screen is darker. It's all monochrome. It blocks the notification. It's very good. Mind the notification. This is also a dopamine trap, right? I personally use something. It's only for Android. It's an app launcher. It replaces my home screen. It's called Minimalist Phone. It looks like that. It's great. You don't have the colors. You don't have it blocks the notification. It's like just very grim, very basic. And in fact, it's actually not reduced my screen time. I was really disappointed when I looked into it. But still, this is the apps like this exist. Use them. And finally, just maybe the best thing is to just turn it off. It's quite liberating to just do, yeah, how about I'll do 24-hour with the phone off. A bit of a digital Shabbat, and you'll come back to your messages. Those emails are not going anywhere. Those comments and videos that still be, and it's a nice 24-hour to do. I encourage you to do that. It's quite liberating. I've already been over time, so we don't have time to question. Thank you very much. I hope to come back to do more of that.